I flew 2,300 miles for my dad's retirement party, but when I got to the door, they wouldn't let me in. "You're not on the list," my own sister said, blocking the entrance like I was a stranger. When I found out the real reason why, I realized my family had been planning this betrayal for months. I flew 2,300 miles for my dad's retirement party, but when I got to the door, they wouldn't let me in. "You're not on the list," my own sister said, blocking the entrance like I was a stranger. When I found out the real reason why, I realized my family had been planning this betrayal for months. Hi, I'm Autumn. And this is the story of how a retirement party invitation turned out to be the most elaborate setup my family had ever orchestrated. Against me. And if you think family betrayal can't get worse than what you've already heard, trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. The plan seemed simple enough when my mother, Patricia, first called me about it. Dad Harrison Callaway was finally retiring after 38 years at Morrison & Associates Engineering in Tucson. It wasn't just any retirement either. He was the senior partner, the guy who'd built half the infrastructure in southern Arizona, the man whose name was literally on plaques throughout the city. This wasn't going to be some quiet dinner at Olive Garden. This was an event. Mom had been planning it for 2 months. She'd rented the grand ballroom at the Celestial Resort, the kind of place where corporate executives held their annual galas and politicians announced their campaigns. She'd hired Pristine Catering, the company that did the mayor's daughter's wedding. She'd ordered flowers from Bloomfield Gardens, the most expensive florist in Tucson, and had custom invitations printed on cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing. "It's going to be magnificent," she told me during that first phone call in early September. "Everyone will be there. His colleagues from the firm, clients he's worked with for decades, the Hendersons from next door, the Yamadas from his golf club, your Aunt Delilah and Uncle Marcus from Flagstaff, even some of his old college fraternity brothers are flying in from California." She rattled off the guest list like she was reading from a presidential inauguration roster. 230 people, she said, a 3-course dinner, open bar, live jazz quartet, and a slideshow presentation that she'd been working on for weeks. She'd even commissioned a custom portrait of Dad from a local artist oil on canvas, something that would hang in his home office during his retirement years, and of course, she added, her voice taking on that particular tone she used when she was about to make a request that sounded reasonable but felt loaded. "We'll need you here, Autumn. You're his oldest daughter. People will expect to see you. I lived in Portland, Oregon now. Had for the past 9 years. Ever since I'd landed the marketing director position at Cascade Digital Solutions. It wasn't exactly next door to Arizona. 5-hour flight, different time zone, different climate, different life entirely. But when Mom called with that date Saturday, October 14th, 6 p.m., I didn't hesitate for even a second. Of course I'll be there, I told her, wouldn't miss it for the world, and I meant it. Despite everything that had happened over the years, despite the complicated dynamics and the subtle tensions that seemed to follow our family gatherings like storm clouds, I genuinely wanted to be there for Dad. He deserved this celebration. He'd earned it through decades of 14-hour days, weekend site visits, and the kind of dedication that had turned a small engineering firm into a regional powerhouse. Harrison Callaway wasn't just my father, he was a pillar of his community, a man who designed the water treatment facility that served 3 counties. He'd overseen the construction of the hospital where half of Tucson's children had been born. When the interstate expansion project had stalled for 2 years due to geological complications, they'd called Dad. When the university needed someone to design a seismic-resistant library that could withstand a 7.0 earthquake, they'd called Dad. He was the kind of man who deserved a party with gold-embossed invitations and a jazz quartet, so I booked my flight immediately. Not the cheapest option, a direct flight from Portland to Tucson on Southwest, departing Friday afternoon so I could have the whole weekend. I requested time off from work, which wasn't simple since we were in the middle of launching a major campaign for our biggest client, but my boss, thankfully, understood the importance of family milestones. "Take Monday off too," she said. "Make it a long weekend. Your dad only retires once." I spent the next month preparing I wasn't just showing up empty-handed to this thing. If Mom was going all out with custom portraits and 3-course dinners, I wanted my contribution to be equally meaningful. I decided to create a memory book, not just a photo album, but a comprehensive collection of Dad's career highlights. Complete with newspaper clippings from major projects, letters from satisfied clients, and photos spanning for decades. I reached out to people from his office, tracked down old colleagues who'd moved to different states. Even contacted some of his former clients who'd specifically requested his expertise on their projects. Mrs. Chen, whose family restaurant he'd helped relocate after a fire, sent me a beautiful letter about how Dad had worked with the city to expedite their permits so they could reopen before they lost their regular customers. Robert Fifield, the hospital administrator, provided photos from the groundbreaking ceremony of the children's wing Dad had designed, along with statistics about how many lives had been saved because of the advanced emergency room layout Dad had created. It took me 3 weeks to compile everything, another week to have it professionally bound. The final product was stunning, a leather-bound portfolio with Harrison Callaway, Building Tomorrow embossed on the cover, filled with 127 pages of memories, achievements, and testimonials. It was the kind of gift that said, "I see you, I appreciate everything you've done, and I'm proud to be your daughter." The week before the party, I called Mom to confirm the details. "The party starts at 6, she said. "But family should arrive by 5:30 to greet guests as they come in. Your sister Meadow is handling the guest check-in, and your brother Finn is managing the audio-visual setup for the slideshow." Meadow and Finn, my younger siblings, both still living in Tucson. Both still deeply embedded in the daily operations of family life. Meadow worked as a dental hygienist at Dr. Kozlov's practice downtown, lived in a subdivision about 20 minutes from our parents' house. Had dinner with them every Sunday after church. Finn was a software developer for a local tech startup, lived in a loft apartment in the Arts District, but still showed up for every birthday, every holiday, every minor family crisis that required technical support or heavy lifting. They were the children who'd stayed. I was the one who'd left. Not that it was supposed to matter. Not that anyone had ever explicitly made me feel guilty about building a life elsewhere. But there was always an undercurrent, a subtle implication that my presence was appreciated but not necessarily expected. That I was the family member who occasionally graced them with visits rather than the one who was integral to the daily fabric of their lives. "Should I bring anything?" I asked Mom. "I have the memory book I've been working on, but is there anything else you need help with?" "Oh honey, you're already doing." I flew 2,300 miles for my dad's retirement party, but when I got to the door, they wouldn't let me in. "You're not on the list," my own sister said, blocking the entrance like I was a stranger. When I found out the real reason why, I realized my family had been planning this betrayal for months. I flew 2,300 miles for my dad's retirement party, but when I got to the door, they wouldn't let me in. "You're not on the list," my own sister said, blocking the entrance like I was a stranger. When I found out the real reason why, I realized my family had been planning this betrayal for months. Hi, I'm Autumn. And this is the story of how a retirement party invitation turned out to be the most elaborate setup my family had ever orchestrated. D against me. And if you think family betrayal can't get worse than what you've already heard, trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. The plan seemed simple enough when my mother, Patricia, first called me about it. Dad Harrison Callaway was finally retiring after 38 years at Morrison & Associates Engineering in Tucson. It wasn't just any retirement either. He was the senior partner, the guy who'd built half the infrastructure in southern Arizona, the man whose name was literally on plaques throughout the city. This wasn't going to be some quiet dinner at Olive Garden. This was an event. Mom had been planning it for 2 months. She'd rented the grand ballroom at the Celestial Resort, the kind of place where corporate executives held their annual galas and politicians announced their campaigns. She'd hired Pristine Catering, the company that did the mayor's daughter's wedding. She'd ordered flowers from Bloomfield Gardens, the most expensive florist in Tucson, and had custom invitations printed on cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing. "It's going to be magnificent," she told me during that first phone call in early September. "Everyone will be there. His colleagues from the firm, clients he's worked with for decades, the Hendersons from next door, the Yamadas from his golf club. Your Aunt Delilah and Uncle Marcus." By the time we landed at Tucson International Airport, I was feeling that particular mix of anticipation and slight anxiety that always accompanied family gatherings. Not anxiety about anything specific, just the general awareness that family dynamics are complicated, that every gathering includes the potential for both wonderful memories and subtle tensions that can emerge from nowhere and dissipate just as quickly. I picked up my rental car, a sensible silver Toyota Camry, and drove through the familiar streets of my hometown. 9 years in Portland hadn't erased my muscle memory of Tucson's layout. I could still navigate from the airport to the Celestial Resort without GPS, past the university campus where I'd spent 4 years earning my marketing degree, past the shopping center where I'd worked at Barnes & Noble during college, past the neighborhood where my high school boyfriend's family had lived. Tucson looked exactly the same and completely different simultaneously. New developments had sprouted in areas that had been empty desert when I left, but the essential character of the city remained unchanged: wide streets, low buildings, mountains visible in every direction, and that particular quality of light that made everything look like it was being photographed through a soft focus lens. The Celestial Resort was exactly as impressive as Mom had described. It sat on a hillside overlooking the Santa Catalina Mountains, a sprawling complex of adobe-style buildings connected by landscaped walkways lined with palm trees and flowering cacti. The main building featured soaring ceilings, hand-painted tiles, and floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the desert landscape like living artwork. I parked near the main entrance and sat in the car for a moment, checking my appearance in the rearview mirror and taking a deep breath. This was it. Dad's big day. A celebration of nearly 4 decades of professional achievement, surrounded by family and friends and colleagues who respected and admired him. I grabbed the gift bag containing the memory book, locked the car, and walked toward the entrance. Through the large windows, I could see people already gathering in what must be the grand ballroom. Men in dark suits and women in cocktail dresses. Small groups clustered around cocktail tables, the kind of elegant mingling that happens at upscale events. The lobby was bustling with activity. A registration table had been set up near the ballroom entrance, decorated with white linens and arrangements of dessert flower succulents and cacti blooms in terracotta pots, very southwestern, very mom style. I could see Meadow behind the table, wearing a deep purple dress I didn't recognize, her dark hair pulled back in an elegant updo, consulting a clipboard and greeting arriving guests with the kind of professional friendliness she'd perfected in her dental hygienist career. She looked beautiful, confident, completely in her element as the family member managing logistics and ensuring everything ran smoothly. For a moment, I felt a surge of genuine affection for my younger sister, appreciation for how much work she'd obviously put into helping Mom make this event special for Dad. I approached the registration table with my biggest smile, ready to surprise her with my arrival and jump into whatever last-minute tasks needed handling. "Meadow," I said warmly, "everything looks absolutely amazing. Mom must be thrilled with how this turned out." She looked up from her clipboard, and her expression didn't change the way I expected it to. No surprise, no delight, no "my God, Autumn, you made it." Instead, her face went carefully neutral, the kind of expression she used to wear when we were teenagers and she was about to deliver news she knew I wouldn't want to hear. "Autumn," she said evenly, "what are you doing here?" The question was so unexpected, so completely not what I'd anticipated, that I actually laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because my brain couldn't immediately process what she'd said or why she'd said it. "What do you mean, what am I doing here?" I said, still smiling because surely this was some kind of joke, some kind of sister teasing that would resolve itself in the next few seconds. "I'm here for Dad's retirement party, same as everyone else." Meadow's expression didn't soften. If anything, it became more guarded, more official. She looked down at her clipboard, ran her finger down what appeared to be a guest list, then looked back up at me. "I'm sorry," she said. And her voice had taken on the tone she probably used at the dental office when delivering bad news about insurance coverage. "But you're not on the list." I stared at her. The words registered individually. I could understand each one, but together they made no sense. Not on the list. I was his daughter. I was family. I'd flown 2,300 miles specifically for this event. I had a professionally bound memory book in my hands that I'd spent a month creating specifically for this celebration. "What list?" I asked, though even as I said it, I could feel something cold settling in my stomach, some primitive warning system that was trying to tell me this wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. "The guest list," Meadow said, tapping her clipboard with her pen. "For the retirement party. Everyone who's invited is on this list, and I don't see your name anywhere." I looked around the lobby, trying to ground myself in something that made sense. These elegant decorations, the well-dressed guests, the jazz quartets setting up their instruments in the ballroom, everything looked exactly like what Mom had described. Exactly like the celebration Dad deserved. The only thing that didn't make sense was this conversation with my sister, this completely impossible suggestion that I somehow wasn't supposed to be here. "Meadow," I said, keeping my voice level but firm, "Mom called me 2 months ago and specifically asked me to be here. She said it was important that I come because I'm Dad's oldest daughter and people would expect to see me." Something flickered across Meadow's face, guilt, maybe, or discomfort, but it disappeared so quickly I might have imagined it. "I'm sorry," she said again, "but I can only admit people who are on the list. Those are my instructions." Instructions? From whom? And why would anyone give instructions about keeping Dad's own daughter out of his retirement party? That's when I saw him, Finn, my younger brother, emerging from the ballroom and walking toward us with the kind of purposeful stride that suggested he'd been watching this conversation and had decided to intervene. He was wearing a charcoal gray suit I'd never seen before, his hair neatly styled, looking every inch the successful tech professional he'd become. But there was something in his expression that matched Meadow's, a careful neutrality that felt more like a mask than a natural reaction to seeing his sister for the first time in 8 months. "Hey, Autumn," he said when he reached us. We need to talk." Finn said, and something in his tone made my stomach drop even further. This wasn't the voice of my little brother who used to ask me to help him with calculus homework. This was the voice of someone delivering official business. "Talk about what?" I asked, still clutching the gift bag with Dad's memory book. "Finn, what's going on here? Why is Meadow saying I'm not on some list? Mom specifically invited me. I have the phone calls. I have the flight confirmation. I took time off work." "Let's step outside," he interrupted, glancing around the lobby where other guests were starting to notice our conversation. A few people I recognized from Dad's office were looking our way with curious expressions. Mrs. Yamada from Dad's golf club was pretending to study the flower arrangements while obviously listening. Finn placed his hand on my elbow, the kind of gentle but firm guidance you use when you're trying to move someone without causing a scene. "Come on, Autumn. Just for a minute." I looked back at Meadow, who was now helping an elderly couple sign in, acting like our entire exchange had never happened. Her professional smile was perfectly in place as she handed them name tags and directed them toward the bar. Like I wasn't standing 10 feet away having some kind of breakdown about not being allowed into my own father's retirement party. Finn led me through the lobby, sliding glass doors onto a landscape patio overlooking the resort's golf course. The October evening air was warm but not oppressive. Typical Tucson weather that I'd forgotten I missed. In the distance, the Santa Catalina mountains were silhouetted against a sky that was just beginning to show the first hints of sunset colors. Under normal circumstances, it would have been beautiful, peaceful. The kind of setting where you'd want to catch up with your brother about life and work and all the small details that get lost in occasional phone calls and text messages, but nothing about this felt normal. "Okay," I said, setting the gift bag down on a nearby patio table and crossing my arms. "What the hell is going on, Finn? And don't tell me this is some kind of misunderstanding," because Meadow's reaction was way too prepared. She knew exactly what to say to me. Finn ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I remembered from childhood whenever he was about to confess to breaking something or getting in trouble at school. Autumn, look, this is complicated. Complicated how? It's Dad's retirement party. I'm his daughter. How is that complicated? He was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the golf course like the perfectly manicured fairways might provide him with the right words. When he finally looked back at me, his expression was a mixture of guilt and something else I couldn't quite identify. Resignation, maybe. The thing is, he said slowly, this isn't just a retirement party. What do you mean it's not just a retirement party? Mom said it was a retirement party. She told me about the catering and the jazz quartet and the slideshow presentation. It is all those things, Finn said. But it's also, well, it's also an announcement. The cold feeling in my stomach intensified. What kind of announcement? Another pause. Another glance toward the mountains. When Finn spoke again, his voice was quieter. More careful. Mom and Dad are announcing Meadow's engagement tonight. I blinked. Meadows engaged, since when? To whom? To Bradley Hutchinson. You remember the Hutchinsons, right? They own the construction company that's worked with Dad's firm for years. Bradley and Meadow have been dating for about 6 months. I processed this information. Meadow engaged to Bradley Hutchinson. I vaguely remembered the family successful, well-connected in Tucson's business community. The kind of people my parents would absolutely approve of. But I still didn't understand why this would create a problem with my attendance. Okay, I said slowly. So it's Dad's retirement party and Meadow's engagement announcement. That's nice. I'm happy for her, but I still don't understand why. That means I can't come in. Finn looked uncomfortable, more than uncomfortable. He looked like he was about to deliver news that would fundamentally change something important. The Hutchinsons are hosting the party, Autumn. They're paying for everything. The venue, the catering, the flowers, the jazz quartet, all of it. It's their gift to Dad for his retirement. And their way of announcing the engagement to their combined social and business circles. The pieces were starting to connect in my mind, but I didn't like the picture they were forming. And they requested that the guest list be limited to people who are actively involved in the local community. People who know both families well, who are part of the ongoing social and business relationships here in Tucson. There it was, the real reason, not some administrative error or oversight. A deliberate decision to exclude me based on the fact that I'd built a life somewhere else. So because I live in Portland, I'm not welcome at my own father's retirement party, I said flatly. It's not that simple. It sounds exactly that simple. Finn,